It's been a very exciting day in Canadian soccer today as Footy Prime on X have announced that the CSA are in talks with Jesse Marsch today in New York. And that is very exciting news because the 50-year-old American manager in Jesse Marsch needs to be looked at as the number one candidate to take over the Canadian men's national team managerial role, with some important tournaments coming up with the Copa America on the horizon and ultimately the main goal in the World Cup coming up in 2026. Jesse Marsch should be looked at as that main candidate, that main man on the short list to take over for this major role. But there's of course still some other names in the mix in Greg Vanny. There's the likes of Bobby Smirniotis, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., and even Ole Gunnar Solskjær's name has been thrown around the past few days. So there's some very exciting names around this shortlist and around the Canadian men's national team role. Even saw Canada reach out to Jose Mourinho to see if he wanted an interview, which he did reject. But the fact that we're going for names like that, even Hervé Renard a few months ago, it's just very exciting news. But for me, the man on the shortlist who needs to be number one is Jesse Marsch for so many reasons, which we're going to dive into this video. But this is just a reaction video around the CSA having talks with Jesse Marsch today in New York, because that is absolutely massive news, which I want to dive into. Jesse Marsch is a great manager. Coming from America, the 50-year-old manager has been around a lot, coming through the Red Bulls Academy and their system as a manager, where he did start out, of course, with New York Red Bulls, ultimately being a manager with the New York Red Bulls, and then going on to be an assistant manager with Red Bull Leipzig, as well being a manager with Red Bull Salzburg, where he was absolutely phenomenal as a manager. Yes, you can look down to the quality of the league and the players he gets at the system, and we will dive into some of the players he has managed soon, but that team was phenomenal, and the way he played and had that team ticking was very exciting. As he did start out with Red Bulls in the MLS, then going to the likes of Red Bull Salzburg, and then going to Leipzig, where he only managed 20 games before making the switch to Leeds United, which arguably that happened way too soon in his managerial career. Yes, you can look at Leeds United and say he had an extremely rough time, and I have a best friend who is a Leeds United fan. He has a season ticket holder, and he said that Jesse Marsch side with Leeds was just way too soon. It was too early of a job for him, and they don't hold any of that really against him. He just wasn't great with Leeds, but that was down to him taking that job on too soon. Didn't have enough time to really grow into a Leipzig role, only having 14 matches in there in total with Leipzig in the 21-22 season, and then having 12 matches once Marcelo Bielsa stepped down and got sacked, and then he took over in that season, kept them up, and then the next season got 20 matches with Leeds United before eventually getting sacked. But ultimately, his best stint was with Red Bull Salzburg, having 32 matches and 32 matches, playing both full seasons, earning 77 and 74 points, but earning 2.31 and 2.41 points per match. And Jesse Marsch has a very exciting kind of play style. Tactics, he likes to set up in a 4-2-3-1 with playing very narrowly and playing down the focus and down the middle of the pitch, leaving the wide spaces very open at times, as my mate from Leeds did let me know and says that can hurt you. But for Canada, if we do play very narrowly, which I think he would be very interesting, because you look at if he plays a 4-2-3-1, you have Alistair Johnston at right back, you have Fonzie at left back, you have Buchanan at right mid, and you have Liam Millar at left mid. Those players work extremely hard to get up and down their respective wings, so I don't think our side under Jesse Marsch would get too left open on wide spaces, and I think with our pace and our defensive contributions, this side would be fine if Marsch did leave our side too open at times. But like I said, Marsch has done some brilliant things in Europe, having those stints with Salzburg and coming through the Salzburg system, that Red Bull Leipzig system. It's ultimately huge. You learn so much, you become a great manager, and you learn how to play different styles, play with different players, play in that certain set tactics and system. And yes, he did take that Leeds match and that Leeds job far too early in his career, and I never believed he should have jumped into that with having not as much experience with Leipzig as I would have preferred for a manager of Jesse Marsch's quality and the way he came up through the Salzburg and Red Bull program. But This is a Jesse Marsch, who's a very exciting manager. He's been snubbed by the U.S. mentee at times. Every U.S. mentee fan wanted him over Greg Berhalter. It was quite clear, and he got snubbed. And I would love to see Jesse Marsch be the Canadian manager and really try to stick it and take it to the U.S. mentee. It would be very exciting to see that revenge match. Jesse Marsch against the U.S. mentee, and I think he would leave it all out there. But Jesse Marsch is also a manager who absolutely knows what he wants from himself, knows the tactics he wants to set up in, knows the formation, knows the philosophy he is going to step into this with. He's not a manager who's going to rush into a job, so this is definitely a job he has looked into for some time. They've been talking to him probably for some time as well, because it has been rumored through Canada Soccer that there has been an American in the mix for quite some time. Whether that's been Greg Vanney or Jesse Marsch, I do believe that has been Jesse Marsch in my opinion, because Jesse Marsch doesn't just jump into a job. Yes, he did that with Leeds United, but after the Leeds United match, or managerial role, he was approached by Southampton to become their next manager going into the season, and he ended up not taking it. This is a manager who thinks what he's going to do. He really looks at his steps into his career. He doesn't just jump into things fully. Yes, he did that with Leeds, but that is not something Jesse Marsch does. So I think if Jesse Marsch takes a hold of this Canadian side, it has been a thought out decision. He knows what he's stepping into. He knows probably already the tactics, philosophy, and how he's going to set this side up already, because he has really worked with some top class players, and the way he has set them up, he has known well. He has done some great things with some top class players. And yes, Jesse Marsch might be not the top kind of manager you could have gotten. Yes, you're looking at Jose Mourinho or Hervé Renard. Those are managers we're ultimately not going to get right now. This is a Jesse Marsch who is from North America. He's ready to step in. He is manager who is going to be a project manager and take us to that World Cup, and who knows, maybe continue with us past the World Cup. He, of course, is from North America, so he probably loves living back in his home continent as well. So coming to Canada, getting that revenge on the US mentee would be very exciting. But ultimately, a big question that has been raised for this managerial role, especially with those Canadian managers and Smirniotis and Tommy Wheeldon Jr., has been, can they coach those Champions League players? Will those players be able to look up to Smirniotis? Will they be able to look to Wheeldon Jr.? Those players might have great man management, fair play, but they haven't worked with some Champions League level players like Stefan Eustáquio, like Tejan Buchanan, Johnston, David, and of course Fonzie. And these guys need a manager where they can look to and say, okay, we'll put our bodies on the line, we'll die for you, we'll go to the ends of the earth for our manager. And Jesse Marsch has done that. He has coached at Leeds, he has coached at Leipzig, he's coached in the Champions League. He has been at the top level of management. He's been in the Bundesliga, he's been at the Premier League. And he has ultimately coached some of world football's best players as well. Coached Erling Haaland at the likes of Red Bull Salzburg for 22 matches. He's coached Dominik Szoboszlai for 80 matches. He's coached players like Josko Gvardiol, Nkunku, Rafinha, Dani Olmo, Sesko, Simakan, Adeyemi, Lamer, the list goes on. Jesse Marsch has been able to coach and get the best out of some of the world's best talent right now. Yes, that is what Salzburg have done, but Jesse Marsch was able to get that out of some of the best players in world football, and there's no question about that. His man management skills are absolutely incredible, and when you're talking about a manager needing to come in and being able to deal with Champions League level quality players in Fonzie and Stefan Eustáquio and those players we always talk about and mention, Jesse Marsch is another manager that absolutely ticks that trait off, and I think he'd come in and do an absolutely sensational job. But the fact that the CSA are in talks with him today in New York is remarkable, and it's very exciting to see what Kevin Blue has been able to do with his short time with the CSA. And I'm not going to be talking about Greg Vanney as much in this video, as I will be posting another video around Greg Vanney coming up tomorrow, because I want to really talk about that one as well, because I find that very interesting that the CSA also have a name in very high regard, is Greg Vanney. That's going to be a separate video coming out tomorrow, guys, but let me know your guys' thoughts down below on Jesse Marsch taking over the Canamantee role, and with the CSA in talks today in New York with Jesse Marsch.